Hey everyone, in this lecture we're going to be talking more on artboards and more advanced techniques with them. So as I talked about in the introduction, that you can use artboards for basic purposes such as creating one, duplicating them by holding the Option key and duplicating multiple artboards, as well as exporting one artboard as you saw into that one JPEG. So those are pretty much the basics, and we can see them here. Now let's get into a little bit more advanced things. Now let's say if I have multiple artboards, as you see here, and I want to copy them because I've been working a lot with maybe 10 or 20 different artboards and it's getting really crazy, and I want to start putting them all into pages, and let's say I forgot to do that. Well, I can go ahead and select all of them by holding the Shift key and clicking on the title and then hitting Command C to copy them. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete key, and I'm going to hit the plus icon for pages, and let's call this artboards, and then hit Command V to paste them, and there we go, we have them pasted now in a new page. So it's really simple to do, really good way to clean up your artboards if you want to do so. Now as you saw earlier, when we went ahead and moved the artboards, we had a little red number that showed up between the spacage when we were duplicating them, as you can see here. Now let's say if I want my space to be evenly accurate, how do I do that? Well, let's go ahead and delete that one, and let's go ahead and delete this one and create those again. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the home icon and hold the Option key, and now we see the red number. So let's say I want to have a good 325 pixel space, let's say 350, just to make it easy. So now that's 350 pixels of space over here. If I go ahead and hold the Option key and click here, I want to have that same spacage. So as I'm dragging it, it's going to go ahead and measure it out, and as we can see, we have 347, 351. Sometimes it won't be that accurate, but if you want to move it, you can go ahead and click on it and hit your right arrow, and it should move it by the pixel. And then if I go ahead and click on it, now it says 349. So if I click on this and hit the right arrow, and I click on it again, I hold down my Option key, it will show me the width if I go ahead and hover over this artboard. So it'll tell me how far it is, and that is how I can tell. Now this isn't just for artboards. You can use this feature if you have stuff on the canvas as well. As an example, I can go ahead and drag this down and select that, and it will say that's 130 pixels from that. So if you want to know exact numberage, you can do that. So now what happens if I want to move my artboards on the canvas and not leave them where they are? You know, if I created a couple different ones going throughout, and I want to even space them out, make them a little bit more organized, I can go ahead and select all of them by holding the Shift key and selecting all of them, and now I can move them freely anywhere on the canvas, and that red line will stay attached to it. Really simple. Now that I have these all selected, because I have the exporting option selected before, I can go ahead and now change elements on here. If you don't see this, all you have to do is click the plus button, and it'll say make exportable. Now if you're working on top of a canvas, or I'm sorry, on top of the artboards, and generally you're working with a transparent background, so when you'll export, you'll generally see this with the checkered background. You don't want that when you export your images. You want a white background on the background you're working in, so you can go ahead and click on background color, and that will make it white. If you want to change the color, you go ahead and click on the color, and then you'll get the color gradient library where you can select the different colors you want. So if you want to change the background of your canvas, you can do this and change the colors of your change the background colors of your canvas. And then when you export them, you go ahead and say export. In this case, I'm going to export them to my desktop. And then if I go here, it looks like it has home copy, and home 3. So those are all the exporting abilities if you wanted to export it. Now let's get into a little bit more advanced things. Let's say we want to pull up a grid. Well, this little icon up here represents a grid. This icon represents the canvases. So if you click on it, You can do show grid, show rulers, show pixels, and show layout. If I click show grid, a grid will come up and you can work in a pixelar grid. If I click on this again and go to grid settings, I can change the grid blockage, whether I want it 20 pixels, 10 pixels, and then the thickness of the blocks to be 5 or 10, so you can make it small or big depending on what you want, and you can change the color of your lineage to different types of colors, whether you want them to be yellow or if you want them to be red. So that's really depending upon you. Really easy to do, really simple. And then you can also make it your default if you wish. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. Don't need to do that. Now if you want to go ahead and shut it off, you go ahead and click show grid, and then that will go away. And then the next thing you have is show layout. This is more used for in web designing if you want to create specific elements in web design to be very responsive. And we'll talk about that later on in the web design section. And if you want to edit that, you can also go to the layout settings and edit that from here as well. And there you have it. Those are your advanced settings within your canvases. And I'm sorry, I keep saying canvases, within your artboards. And that's pretty much the general case of it. Now let's say one more thing. If you wanted to make your artboard bigger or smaller, as you can see, you have these little anchor points that you can select. You can go ahead and click and drag it down or drag it up, depending on how big you want to make it, if you want to make it wide or not wide. And if you want to do it proportionately from top to bottom, if you go ahead and click and hold your Alt or Option key, it will do it at a proportionate way. This is something that carried over, it looks like, from Photoshop, so that option has carried over, as I mentioned in the Photoshop lecture about similarities and differences. And again, if you do this, you can do it left to right proportionately, which is very nice. Or you don't have to do that at all. You can just do it freeform if you wish, and do it that way. Now be careful when you do make your canvases. You don't want your canvases to spill onto other canvases. That could get really messy, so try to keep a nice distance away from them as possible so your projects can be nice and clean. We can also say resize to fit, so we can draw a shape and then hit resize to fit that shape if we wish. So if we're working, let's say, with a tiny icon and we don't want to use the entire canvas, we say resize to fit, and it will resize and fit to that specific shape or icon. And there you have it. That is canvases. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. That is artboards, and we'll be talking about more things in the next lecture. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.